All right, we are live and a little
From
bit
New York,
early.
it's Saturday. Oh, okay.
Where, where's my cool saxophone guy? We need the saxophone theme. Get in here.
One of the podcasts I listen to, the it's a music podcast, and the guy wrote his own theme song and played it. He plays saxophone on his own like intro and outro music. And I can't remember the exact wording, but he ends every episode with something similar to "Let's see what the horns have to say about this," and then just incredible saxophone solo.
And that's I think one of the fundamental pieces of free speech that we've forgotten about is the right to discuss specifically through saxophone.
Yeah, many people don't know that, but when Benjamin Franklin himself wrote the Bill of Rights, he was mostly thinking about saxophone.
Saxophone and the right to put keys on kites.
hmm
Which would be a Death Cab for Cutie album name if Death Cab for Cutie was cool.
Yeah, too bad they're not the coolest band that I know, and I think about Benjamin Gibbard frequently.
I wonder if he's still. I just want to know if he has matured at all as a person. That's
I think he has.
yeah.
He did a bunch of live streams during the pandemic, like during the height of the pandemic, um, on YouTube, just like I think every day or like 5 days a week or something. He would just do a live stream and do a little concert. He seemed really down to earth and thoughtful, but I guess
Okay.
he's kind of always come across that way to me.
To be completely honest, know nothing about him. For one of the two band, I've seen more than two bands live, but for one of the two bands that I have personally bought tickets to see live,
Mm.
um, I know very very little. And ironically, he's the lead singer for both. So I
You saw
just
Postal Service live?
yeah, I saw Postal Service live. It was me and Kathleen and I think Matthew.
Whoa,
Um,
that's so cool.
yeah,
No offense, but where was I? I don't want to make the story about me, but I'm gonna.
no, that's legit. I actually don't know. Uh, One of the downsides of the way that I've lived my life is that I remember very very little about my own like youth now. I don't know if that's because I didn't keep a
Mhm.
journal or I just don't think about it much.
It's probably all the marijuana.
It's all the weed. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I don't remember a lot of that experience.
Oh,
So
Sinus Relief says I was probably on my mission. That makes sense.
I mean, it, that might be true, but I feel like it was not that long after I graduated. I'm trying to remember when you left.
Oh, you know what? I left after Matthew. So if Matthew was there, I was probably
Then
not on my
yeah,
mission yet. But I was working crazy hours that whole summer. So maybe you invited me, and
yeah.
I said I've got work like an idiot.
I could see that. I could also see you were there and I forgot that you were there, and
I've never
somehow
seen Postal
Matthew
Service.
filled
I
that
can
void.
I can roll that one out.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. And that was before I had like a camera on my cell phone. So
hmm
it's just gone.
Just gone. It's so nice that they invented cameras on cell phones, and now our memories can stay with us.
Right.
That's such
Exactly.
an innovation.
Actually, Death Cab for Cutie has a song about that too on their Kintsugi album. And it's really good. In fact, I might go so far as to say that Kintsugi is my favorite Death Cab album.
Hmm. I'm still a plans man myself, but I respect it.
Plans is really good.
Right, well, we are at our official starting time, so I think we can go ahead and kick
Can I
things
say it?
off. Say it.
Oh, howdy, 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 all you cool cats and kittens. Welcome back to Man Wanders Around in the Dark, looking at all these random things. That's right, we're playing Planet Crafters. Nope, we are playing The Planet Crafter.
Some planet crafters.
We are the Planet Crafters, but we are playing The Planet Crafter. Singular. And I think that I have exploited this wreck in the desert as much as I can without getting the deconstruct tool number 2. Actually, maybe I was wrong. What's down here? Is this something that has things at the bottom? Oh, yes it does.
Got
Anyways,
a pop quiz in the chat. Science Relief wants to know how many stages of cellular respiration are there?
Two
I didn't know
stages.
cells could respirate.
The
It takes
breathing.
me several whole organs to respirate. How can a single cell do that?
That's a great point. I'm pretty sure that cellular respiration is not true.
And Megan in the chat says, hello, I'll be playing Dragon Age, so I'll be listening but not chatting as much. But Plans is for sure the best Death Cab album. Yes.
We may not agree on what the best Death Cab album was, but I think we can agree on the worst Death Cab album.
Can we?
It's Codes and Keys.
Oh, don't say Codes and Keys.
It's
The
it is.
synthesizer. It was so over the top.
It was so over
Complimentary.
the top. Nope.
Sanders Relief says the answer is 5. Sorry, I cut you off as you were naming some. Do you think you would have gotten to 5?
I only had 2, and I bet you could guess what both of them were.
Breathe and breathe some more.
Breathe in, breathe out. Yeah, basically.
Oh, that's better. All my guided meditation breathing exercises say square breaths. You breathe in, hold it in, breathe out, hold it out. So I would have gotten to 4.
Okay.
I don't know what this 5th one is. Maybe it's learning how to breathe is a stage.
Each breath you must learn how to breathe. That is some monasterial thinking right there. Monastic. That's the word. Monasterial's not a word. Monastic.
Could be. Oh, welcome, Janda. Yanda. I know I've asked you before. I don't remember if it's Yanda or Janda, but happy to have you here.
Yeah, welcome.
And Sinus Relief wants to know how many ATP are produced per glucose. I know this one. It depends on how recently you ate a Snickers bar.
Ooh. I don't know why the number 26 has jumped to the front of my brain, so that's what I'm going with. 26.
26, and it depends. Who's right?
I think it depends is always a good answer. Could you imagine going to a presidential debate and blowing all the people's minds with "it depends"? I think they wouldn't know
Well,
what to do.
In the most recent presidential debate, they were really trying to avoid the word depends. But
that was good. I like that.
That was just off the dome, not even rehearsed.
You didn't even have a plan of a joke.
I had a concept of a plan.
You didn't have a concept of a plan of a joke. Thank you for saving me as I butchered that one. All right, chat. What would your heart rate be after running up the 18 flights of stairs we have to our base?
Science Relief says we were close. It does indeed depend, but it falls between 28 and 34 ATP per glucose. I feel like yours was actually closer than mine.
Well, I mean, you actually got the right answer.
Yeah, but you said 26, and the answer was 28 to 34. I feel like that. Your
I did well
specificity
numerically.
outweighs my accuracy.
Berkeley, I always struggle with the controls in these games, and I have recently started dropping stuff on the ground outside the locker that it belongs in instead of putting it in the locker.
Okay.
And I just want you to know that I'm sorry. I didn't choose to live like this. It's just the way that I am.
That's so fine.
Let's see.
Okay, Jared, we've got a problem, and that is aluminum. We don't have much of it. I happen to know where there's a lot. Do you think I should just run over and grab some?
I would like to come with you on this quest. I mean,
Okay.
I will answer the call.
All right. It is tough to get to. We don't even have jetpacks. Okay, I haven't played this game in so long. I think we might need to build a giant staircase in order to get there. So maybe let me go build that with some air, and then I'll come back for you and we can go together.
Okay. I'm going to craft some air because I ran out. I'm also going to drink water because apparently my guy sweats like a pansy.
Imagine being so weak that you sweat. How are you as a man?
Yep, it's
Feeling good about that.
It's unmasculine to sweat. All right, sinus relief. What is the powerhouse of the cell? Riddle me that.
So last time we streamed this, I was playing Planet Crafter like every day. I was playing by myself. I was playing with my coworkers. I was playing after the stream, and I've barely played at all since the last time we streamed this. So I'm having a hard time remembering how to play the game, but also remembering like which save file was which. This is fun.
I feel that in my bones. I get so disoriented. There's a game I play a lot of called Kenshi, and I've had like 6 parallel saves at one point. And it's a game that really does require save scumming if you're not looking to die immediately and have to restart. So I save scummed a lot, and eventually I overwrote all my saves by accident.
Oh no.
And since that day, I have vowed not to have more than one save going at any given time.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable.
Well, I kind of forced it to happen through my own bad behavior to begin with. So really, I guess I'm just aligning what I want with what actually happened.
Okay, we've got another fun pop biology quiz question. Gosh dang it, I don't remember how to play this game. Okay, true or false, the Utah legislature is trying to remove decision-making power from voters by amending the state constitution to allow legislators to vote in the interest of the people instead of being required to follow what voters say via their ballots. I did not know about this.
I've got to say true, because that's kind of the trend in a lot of places. So there's two schools of thought in terms of legislative voting, and one is vote for your conscience. The other is vote for your constituency. So constituency voting tends to have, in my opinion, tends to have more integrity, because as an elected official in the legislature, your job is to vote as your constituency would vote. That's my opinion. Whereas allowing legislators to vote their conscience, or quote unquote in the best interest of their people, instead of having to vote the way that their people tell them to vote, is, I think that it devalues the legislature, and it puts us into kind of a awkward electoral college type situation where there's no, you're not really represented, if that makes sense, anymore.
Yeah, it's frustrating to hear legislators and people in government just feeling like they know better than the populace. Because, like, maybe sometimes they do. But how do you have that much of an ego to say, I know better than what these 3 million people or however many people in Utah are voting for?
Yeah, it's an unreal level of self-confidence, right? Wow. This is a cool place, Berkeley. I didn't know this was a thing.
Oh, did you come follow me?
I didn't, but I ended up by you accidentally.
This really says the only thing better than democracy is managed democracy.
That's right.
Yes. Okay, so this place is cool, but does not have aluminum. If we climb up these stairs here and then walk through the rocky wasteland, we'll build another staircase down to a place that does have aluminum.
Okay.
It's a lot easier to navigate this when you have jetpacks, but we have not unlocked that yet, I don't think.
I think that's true.
Also, the rendering here is crazy. There's like stuff that looks like you're about to run into it, and then when you get closer, it decides it doesn't exist. It's good fun.
That's just driving while you're tired, I feel like. Ha-cha-cha.
Ha-cha-cha. Oh yeah, I forgot how crazy this place looks. I think you're gonna enjoy this.
Whoa. There's like melted rings and pillars made out of what looks like asteroid. That's pretty cool. Should probably build a little shelter out here so there's some oxygen.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Do you happen to have materials for that?
I have materials, but I don't know if I have the right ones for that. So what's the crafting menu again? I forget.
Q if you're on keyboard.
Thank you. Let us see here. Need some titanium.
Oh no. I ran out of iron. All right, another trivia question. What is the primary goal of the Irish Republican Party, IRA, or Irish Republican Army, IRA? To promote Irish culture and heritage? Oh, A, to promote Irish culture and heritage. B, to achieve Irish independence from British rule. C, to establish a monarchy in Ireland. D, to unite Ireland with Great Britain. Well, certainly not D.
Yeah, I would say it's gotta be. B was like the independence, right? That was the independence option. That would be my guess.
Same. I could see a case for A as well, but probably via their own government. I clipped through the ground into a place that's not supposed to exist. That's so fun.
Wow.
If that ever happens to you, you can just hit F4 repeatedly and it'll just pull you up through the map.
That is very cool that they thought of that. Although I suppose you could also interpret that as, wow, they came up with a lazy solution to a problem that shouldn't exist.
Yeah. Most of this game development was done by like 2 people, I think. So,
They came up with a reasonable solution for 2
yes.
people to implement.
Science Relief says we were correct about the IRA, but I feel like we didn't land on an answer. Did we say B? Was that the one that was
B.
correct?
Yeah.
I know about that from Dairy Girls and listening
Ah,
to the Cranberries.
I have listened to a lot of the Dubliners and just kind of absorbed the ethos of the Dubliners, I suppose. Which partially instilled me with that. Atmospheric water collector. That's cool.
Yeah, that means that we don't need to harvest ice anymore. Or if we had that, then we wouldn't need to harvest ice. Because we could just get water straight from the air. And later we'll be able to get water straight from the water.
That sounds like a pyramid scheme. Nothing good can come of this. Did you know that Muammar Gaddafi helped to arm and train the IRA? And if you don't know who that is, he was the dictator of Libya until 2011 when the United States funded several militias which overthrew him and killed him.
Whoa. I did not know that. Sometimes I get surprised when countries that I think of as small and random are like have relationships with each other, but that's obviously such a dumb American-centric way of thinking about the world. Because why not?
Well, I mean, to be fair, like economically not a huge player in like the global market. It would be easy to ignore Libya, I think, even if you came from a smaller country. But I do agree that it is easy to overlook. And maybe being informed is a good idea. You and that's right. Morally, you must know about Libya. That's the conclusion I wanted you to come to.
It is an imperative.
Okay, I have built a small room that contains a crafter and enough space to refill your oxygen. It's kind of towards the middle of this field of spikes.
Okay, cool.
It's by one of those crashed bits of ship in the field of spikes.
Nice. I should have just been a little more patient because I just made it back to our main base.
Oh, nothing wrong with that. Okay,
Go ahead.
I climbed your stairs to nowhere. I'm running across this ledge up here.
Okay, there's stairs down the other side, but they only go halfway. So I'm getting enough materials to build the rest of the stairs and a little base at the bottom of those stairs.
I see.
And then we can go ham getting aluminum.
Wow. You truly are a poet.
I truly hate the things that come out of my mouth sometimes.
What has happened here, chat? Void fireflies? Is this a Risk of Rain crossover? What is this? What? Whoa. This is wild. Is it supposed to be really trippy?
Yeah, it's hard to tell what's deliberate here. I think so, but they also took some shortcuts, and it seems like the trippiness is hiding some of the rough around the edgesness, and it makes the whole thing
Ah,
feel less deliberate than it maybe was.
see. Whoa. Osmium. Is that where Donny Osmond and his family came from?
Did you find some osmium?
Yeah.
That is so exciting. That's so funny you made that joke because when we found osmium for the first time when I played with my coworkers, we put down a beacon that said Donny Osmium. I guess that joke's kind of right there.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Low effort jokes and getting credit for it. That's my bread and butter.
That's the SV Terra guarantee.
Oh, zeolite. I've never even heard of that. All right. Looks like we're ditching some titanium and some iron to make space for this rare
I'll be
osmium.
Yeah, osmium will be really good. That will let us build an ore extractor, which will let us get an infinite amount of aluminum. So the resources that we just pick up off the ground, those don't regenerate. But with an ore extractor, it just gets an infinite amount of whatever material it's mining. So that's nice.
Excellent. Well, I jumped off of the bottom of your stairway because I was not paying attention. And I am stuck at the bottom. And I am definitely about to suffocate, which
Okay.
is pretty standard for this game if you've been following along with us. Also, I just found some pulsar quartz, which is cool.
Nice. Yeah, these are great things that you're finding.
So,
I think when you suffocate to death, you'll appear in your new little hovel in the spiky area where I am
excellent.
stopping for a quick breathing break.
Love me a hovel.
Oh, hey, you're here too.
Hi. I just had this crazy dream where I suffocated to death.
Wow. Sinus Relief asks, how did Ronald Reagan's policies primarily impact inner cities? A. Increased federal funding for urban renewal projects. Not that one. B. Decreased federal funding for social programs and housing assistance. That
That
sounds true.
one.
C. Implemented stricter gun control laws to reduce urban violence. I think he did that as well.
He
In
did, but it wasn't in reaction to urban violence. It was in reaction to the Black Panthers open carrying on the steps of the state capitol building in California, which was legal to do at the time. But because it
Good
was
for
the
them.
Black Panthers, it's
D. Expanded federal programs to address poverty and inequality. Ha.
yeah. So B and C.
Yeah, I guess the motivation in C to reduce urban violence. It was probably not that.
Yeah.
He doesn't care about urban violence. Speaking of the Black Panthers, I've been reading the autobiography of Malcolm X, and it
Oh yeah.
is really, really good. I'm only in the first 20%, so I'll give like a full review on Discord probably when I finish it. But so far, it's been like a really good read, and also just maybe one of the most important books ever written. I think that maybe every American should read it.
Wow. Okay. That's high praise. I've read a very short biography of Malcolm X, but I haven't read his autobiography. So that's interesting.
I've also learned that the whole autobiography part has kind of been called into question recently. Like at the time that he wrote it, he collaborated with a journalist. And so in his opinion, in Malcolm X's opinion, it was ghostwritten by this journalist. But modern like historians kind of feel like the journalist had enough influence on it that it's maybe really more of a biography. Anyway, but the official title of the book is The Autobiography of Malcolm X. So, anyway, that's some fun ambiguity.
Yeah, and you know, as long as autobiography's in the title, you can refer to it that way, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the rule.
No take backsies. So, what about it has impressed you?
I I love his like descriptions and his analysis of the racism that he faced. I mean, like obviously he's an expert in the things that he faced in his life, but like he'll tell these stories that are a little bit horrifying, but then he does a really good job in explaining exactly why they're wrong. A recent example, he talked about when he first moved to Boston and he was so excited to get this hairstyle that all the hip black youth were doing, where they like physically burned their hair and scalps in a super painful way to make their hair look more like white people's hair.
Mm-hmm.
And he'll like talk about how exciting it was at the time and then talk about his current perspective on it and how sad it was that he felt like he had to go through physical pain to look more white because looking more white was more stylish.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, it's just a really interesting mix of like super insightful analysis of what was happening and being really good at telling the stories that were happening. I should have said that was in the opposite order. He's a really great storyteller, but then also gives really great analysis about each of the stories that he tells.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, I'll post a full review once I finished it. But Autobiography of Malcolm X.
Yeah, that's super interesting. He's kind of an interesting character because, you know, the way that he's taught in schools is that he was a civil rights leader, but that he was also involved with like other kind of more radical groups. And my understanding is that he distanced himself from those groups later on. But for a while, he was kind of seen as kind of like the opposite of Martin Luther King in terms of nonviolence versus, you know, freedom by any means necessary. I don't know if that's actually what was said about him, but that's what sticks in my brain from memory. So I'm very excited to see what you learn in that regard too, because I always think it's interesting to compare how things were taught and the curriculum and the perspective the curriculum imparts with kind of a more scholarly take, I guess, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's just like even from the beginning of the book, you can tell he's a lot angrier than Martin Luther King Jr. comes across, at least in Dr. King's speeches. Yeah, a lot angry about the situation that he's been placed in and the treatment he's received, and also very anti-integration. Interestingly, he really had a lot of disdain for Black people and white people that thought the solution to racism was integration. He saw that as like Black people trying to occupy a white space instead of just like having their own spaces.
Interesting.
And I think he would have perceived the space as inherently white. Anyway, yeah, very, very interesting to read his own words and his own thoughts compared to like what maybe many of us learned about him in school. Sinus Relief has another question for us. Oh, it sounds like these are coming from Gemini. That's cool. This is one of the better uses of generative AI I've seen. Whoa, it also just occurred to me that maybe Gemini was partially named after generative AI. Maybe not. Okay, I'm just going to read the question. Free response. How could the American people go about trying to ensure safety while also ensuring freedom? Can these two exist simultaneously?
Okay. I could talk for hours about this. I was talking with I won't identify them. Somebody that I know closely, and they were sharing some kind of fear-mongering takes on what facial recognition is going to do, and I don't know, just the whole advent of AI and our ability to use that to do like biometric identification in real time without people's consent, or at least without their express consent, I should say. And you know, they didn't think about it in those terms, but it really was like the classic security versus freedom discussion. And I think it's possible to have both, but I think that it comes down to having strong communities. And if you don't have strong communities, then you have to give up freedom in exchange for security, or give up security in exchange for freedom. And I think that's a trap that we have fallen into in the past, and I think we're falling into it again, is the idea that the federal government is able, or any government, I'll say, is able to adequately replace or substitute itself for those communities, in terms of caring for people who are lonely, in terms of I would say even providing aid. It's appealing to turn to a government for those types of things because they have the ability to force people to give them a lot of resources and then redistribute those resources. But to really meet the needs of the individual, you have to know the individual and care about the individual. And I think that I want to see that come from people and from the communities that they can build. And I think that requires it requires us to be uncomfortable as people, which is something that we've shied away from, especially in the era of entertainment, right? Not to vilify us necessarily, but just to say that our tolerance for discomfort seems to have decreased as we become less accustomed to experiencing it in our day-to-day lives. So I think that if we are to have both, it will be through embracing the inconvenience and the discomfort that it takes to build a strong community. And if we don't do that, then we must choose one or the other. And I believe people will choose security over freedom because security brings economics with it, whereas freedom does not. And I think people would rather be less free and able to afford their entertainment and their healthcare and all these other things, right? Than to be more free, but to be living in a I'm forgetting the name of it. Survival of the fittest. What is that called? There's a single word phrase for that.
Evolution.
Well, evolution is part of it, but
natural selection.
Yeah, it's like an anarchical system, if that makes sense. In that those who are strong will take from the weak, if they're free to do so. Anyways, that's my theory. Berkeley, what's your theory?
I think that freedom and security are both, if you think of them both as means to an end, and the end is like feeling happy. I think they both serve a really similar niche where you don't feel like you have control over your life if you don't have the freedom to do the things that you want to do, and you don't feel like you have control over your life if you feel threatened, if you don't feel secure. So yeah, I don't think either of them are like ends that are to be pursued blindly. I think they're both like tools that give people a sense that they have control over their own destinies.
Mm-hmm.
And people are going to have different balances of which one they want. And I think people often look down on people that choose that balance and that trade-off differently. And I think that's kind of silly because like people are pursuing both of them for the same ultimate goal of feeling like they're in control.
Yeah, that's a great point, and I think a great a great counter to the cynicism that I think I tend to be prone to, and that I see a lot in the world, in terms of thinking of freedom and control as a good and evil dichotomy, rather than a freedom and security as a good and evil dichotomy rather than a vehicle, right, to help people feel like they're in control. That's interesting. Thanks for sharing that.
Thanks for the question, Sanus Relief. This is awesome. Okay, I was out of food, so I came back to the main base to grab some food, and we don't have a ton of food there either. So I'll bring back as much as I can. How are you doing on food?
I am doing okay, but I could craft some seed beds, I think, to grow food in, if that would be helpful.
Okay, I think we need the food growers is the name. It's like a machine. It doesn't look like a farm.
You are correct. So
What's
I
it
will
called?
need aluminum, iron, and a water bottle.
Oh, do you want me to bring back a bunch of water?
We have a ton already, actually.
Okay, cool.
So I will go do that. I dropped a upgrade blueprint when I died originally out in the like aluminum fields. And I think I was more south of the staircase. So
Okay,
just
I'll keep an eye out
keep
for
your
that.
eyes out for that. Yeah.
Okay, I've got a. Sorry if people are tired of this topic. I've got another question in this category. I had a professor ask me this once, and I was just mind blown at how many of my classmates disagreed with me. So I'm curious your thoughts. The question that the professor posed was: imagine that there is just a camera network on all public streets in America. So like anytime you're on the street or on the sidewalk, you can trust that you're being filmed, and a database that is collecting all that information and analyzing it. Would you rather, you have to live in one of two worlds, a world where everyone has access to this network and this data, or where just the federal government has access to the network and data?
If you have only those choices, I can see good arguments for both, to be honest. I think that, as you might have intuited from my comments earlier, leaving the federal government as the sole purveyor of any or controller of any resource leads to potential for that resource to be abused or for inefficiency or any number of things. I guess I would liken it to like an operating system. Like if Microsoft decides that they want to force feed us ads as part of Windows, they can, and they do. And, you know, they have the power. They have all the power in that dynamic. And the only way to counteract that is through open source, where the incentive isn't towards advertising. I've never used Linux myself, but several of my family members have switched to Linux, and while it does seem like it's painful, they're also like in control of their computer again in a way that they wouldn't be otherwise. So, as a metaphor, I feel like the federal government being the only ones allowed to use that database gives them a lot of power, because they could manipulate it and nobody would know. Like, if you're manipulating the footage, you could kind of say whatever you want happened, and nobody's going to be able to disprove you. Whereas open access to it would violate privacy. I mean, you're in the public, so it's not really privacy necessarily, but you know, if everybody has access to it, somebody could stalk you and you would have no ability to prevent that. So I guess those are my two arguments. I think I side more on the federal government should have the only access, just because I think that I want to believe that people, even people in power, still have a sense of duty to do the right thing. Whereas I think that there's enough people if you give everybody access, there's enough people out there who won't have that, just by percentage, that I think that it would be more often abused. How did that line up with what you found, Berkeley?
Yeah. I find your argument about manipulation to be the most convincing argument I've heard on that side. So many of my classmates were so adamant that it should belong to everyone so the government can't abuse it. And from my perspective, other people's ability to see that data would not influence the government's ability to abuse the data. But I hadn't thought about like them being able to like manipulate and lie about it. And I just think that like the risk of stalking or other similar abuses that would be perpetrated citizen against citizen would that would alarm me a lot more than anything the federal government would do with it.
Yeah, it's tricky.
We got some more great questions from Signers for Relief. It often does seem that right-leaning people wish for more freedom in some ways, even for corporations, and left-leaning people often want more security in some ways. As a country, is there a real way to balance this? Do you think we are locked in a cycle of perceived freedom while truly being enslaved to corporations either way? Whew, that's heavy. His other question is, have you changed your mind about something recently? If so, what made you change your mind?
I feel like I've been talking a lot. Berkeley, do you want to take a stab at these and then I'll chime in afterward?
In terms of like being able to find a balance as a country between freedom and security, I feel like it is similar to what Jared was talking about earlier about finding communities. I think that there needs to be enough dialogue to like find the shared values. I think we all have, there's like nuance in what people believe about free speech, but no one thinks that free speech means I should be able to stand outside my neighbor's house and scream at them. Like, that's obnoxious and just not something that we as a society value. And I think that like society does form and enforce values. So if we can just talk enough to agree about the things that we value and what different values mean and don't mean and what they look like in different contexts, I think that there's hopefully enough common ground that exists that can be useful. In terms of things I've changed my mind about recently, this is super niche and dumb, but at work I was very convinced that this one code pattern was the correct thing to do, and I shared it with my coworkers, and they talked me down and convinced me that a different code pattern was the right thing to use in that scenario.
Being able to have that discussion is I mean, the fact that they're comfortable to talk about that with you is good. I think one of my fears as a engineer, especially, you know, a little bit down the road where I might have other engineers working with me that I'm supposed to mentor, is creating a space where they're not able to challenge my beliefs and my thoughts and processes. Because I think that innovation really relies on the ability to communicate like that. And if you can't do that, then something's gone wrong. Let's see. For me, what have I changed my mind about recently? One thing that I really was not looking forward to when I graduated was, with my job, was like the client-facing side of it. And I thought that I didn't want to work with people and that I just wanted to be in my little desk and work by myself. And I'm a very introverted person, so I still somewhat hold on to that belief. But I've noticed that I've enjoyed meeting with people a lot more than I thought that I would. And part of that, I think, is because it allows me to see how my work impacts others, which, as a transmission planer, that's kind of rare because the projects that I'm working on are usually multiple years out from being like switched on and connected to the power grid. So meeting with clients, I thought I would hate it. I still get a little anxious for it, but I feel like I'm enjoying it more, and I look forward to that because it lets me see the value in what I do. Berkeley, could you read me the first of the set of two again so that I can provide a more coherent answer to that?
As a country, is there a real way to balance freedom and security? Or do you think we're locked in a cycle of perceived freedom while truly being enslaved to corporations either way?
I think all conflict is economic at its core, because when you think of economics, like, what is that really? It's the ability to have a place to live that meets your standard of living. It's the ability to eat the food that you want to eat. It's the ability to wear the clothes you want to wear, right? Economics and freedom are, in my mind, very, very closely linked. So if you lack freedom, then you fundamentally are economically, I don't know if I would say enslaved, but maybe subjugated, if that has any difference in connotation. I think that balance is possible, I think that it's, like Berkeley said, there's probably more common ground than people realize, especially when it comes to media sensationalism, making things appear more divided and dehumanizing people that we don't agree with. But I think that it's something that we may not ever fully get dialed in. Partly because of the economic piece of it. I do think that allowing corporations to have the power they do in our society has been a mistake. And I think that there's so much money in politics right now, partly because we have so much money in our corporate world. And we've allowed our political and our corporate worlds to interact. But I do think that we have lost some of our voice politically as individuals to the desires of powerful businesses. And this segues into something that I've been wanting to talk about. I'm going to pull up the name of the guy so I don't butcher it. But some of you might have seen a new folk artist on Instagram. The dude's been making music for a long time. I haven't listened to a lot of his older stuff, but the guy's name is Jesse Wells, and he writes a lot of political music. Not all of his music is political, but he has an album called Hell's Wells. Wells with 2 E's, E-L-L-E-S. That kind of sums up the things that make me feel jaded about our situation as a country. And I listened to the album today, really enjoyed it. It's pretty stripped down folk music, but it's good stuff. So I'd recommend that. It's Hell's Wells by Jesse Wells. It's worth a listen. If you like this type of discussion, there's a lot of it on that album. I do think it's a little heavy-handed at times, but good work and interesting to think about.
Jared, are you working on solar panels?
I have built a few small ones. We didn't have aluminum, so I did not build bigger, but now we have more aluminum, so we can build bigger.
I am halfway through gathering ingredients, so I can build the bigger ones.
Okay, great. Yeah, when I built the food growers, it outstripped our power capacity, unfortunately.
That makes sense. The food growers are pretty intense, power intensive. Well, this has been a fun session. I feel like we didn't do any of we didn't build new types of machines or anything, but we got so much aluminum, and that is gonna help us a lot next time with making new machines.
Yeah, and our pace has tangibly increased on some of this stuff. We've unlocked some new tech. Did you end up finding that blueprint?
I didn't.
Okay, I'll have to take a look for that. Maybe I'll run out there before I starve to death and see what I can find. I do wonder what our political scene will look like in 10 years. it really surprised me when I looked back at the presidential debates of the mid 2000s compared to the debates of today, just to see how much the tone and the personalities and the decorum has changed. And just the physical principle of trending towards chaos, like thermodynamic decay, would tell you that once we've reached this point, we can't go back. But that assumes that there's not energy being put into the system, and I think that you and I are energy being put into the system, and I think that ties in with building communities, and that if we care to go back, and enough people care to go back to a more civilized age, as it were, I think that we can, and I hope that we do. I hope that my kids don't grow up with the same type of behavior seen as commonplace in their politicians. And I think there's a good chance of that, just looking at the younger, especially on the Democratic side. I don't know a lot of the younger Republican federal legislators, but people like AOC and her ilk seem to be a little bit more even-keeled and less prone towards accepting that vitriol is a acceptable substitute for political debate and discussion. So, for whatever that's worth, I think that freedom and security balance might swing more towards the middle. I think that through the global war on terror, we've swung more towards the security side of things, and with the uncertainty of the economic crises and the societal chaos that COVID brought, it's understandable why we'd be in a kick towards security right now. But I think that it doesn't have to stay that way. And even if it does, I think that, like Berkeley said, it's possible to be happy and to live your life and to feel like you're in control.
I did not say it was possible. I just said we want that.
I think, well...
Who knows if it's possible?
I think it's possible. I do think it's possible. But yeah, that's fair. I don't want to put words in your mouth. Let me say, I think it's possible. And I think that it's more likely when we talk with each other instead of letting the sensational media cycle dictate how we think about each other.
So stick around with SV Tear. We're not sensational at all.
That's true. We're mediocre.
We are bland as flour. That's not true. I think we have a good time here.
We do. Berkeley and I do. I don't know about the rest of you, but Berkeley and I.
Yeah, I mean, you keep coming back, so hopefully you're having an okay time. Speaking of time, it is about that time for us to say so long. Jared's prepared a song for you all to commemorate the occasion.
Yeah. The song is, hang on. I gotta look at my notes here. Ooh, it's not going well. Here it is. The song is Deja Vu by Dave Rogers. And you must go listen to it. And if you recognize it, you're welcome. And if you don't, you're also welcome, because you have now some more joy in your life from Deja Vu by Dave Rogers. And
This is a moral imperative, like being aware of Libya.
It is. I'll post it in the Discord so you guys can give it a listen. Right after this.
The Discord, where can people find that?
Well, Berkeley, I wouldn't expect you to know this because you're a technological imbecile. But the rest of us smart people have figured out that if you go to the About section of our Twitch page, or check the description if you're watching this on YouTube, you can find a link to all the links within links within links that will take you to our Discord, where we talk about art, books, music, games, and politics if you're so interested. Actually, more current events, less politics. But hey, maybe you could be the first to get banned. You don't know. Try it. Find out.
Try it. We don't even know what the lines are.
And if that's not your gig and you just want to know, hey, when are you guys doing this next? Follow our Instagram. That's where we announce what we're going to do games-wise and when we're going to do it. So join in there if you are excited to come back and make fun of us in real time.
Mm-hmm. Thank you everyone for joining. Thanks especially Science Relief for the questions. That was awesome.
Yeah, super fun.
Yeah. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.